So if you check the links in the description, you can find resources on how you can help the Black Lives Matter movement, or you can also watch my last video up in the cards here if you want some more information. Okay, hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is kind of awkward to film. I realized this because I got this like throwback picture from my meetup from like 3 years ago, and I was looking at like every single person from that meetup in Melbourne, and I was like, damn, like you guys are all adults now. If you're not adults, you're at least like 16. Once I paint them, they're gonna look hella nice. Anyways, off topic. A lot of you guys are growing up with my channel, so I think this is appropriate to talk about. Even if you are like younger than like 12 years old, I think talking about sex is really important. So I want to talk about my first time. What is most important is having safe sex. Dude, you guys don't want to be popping out babies at 12, 13. You don't want to be popping out babies like before you're even a fucking adult and you're still a baby. You don't want to be going through the trauma or horrors of abortion. This means birth control, condoms, the fucking rod. I don't even know. I'm on birth control. So I started birth control when I was about maybe 16, and I was actually buying it behind my parents' back because I was too shy to ask my parents. Actually, I never had this sex talk with my parents, so that's why I want to be that bigger sister for you guys and talk about sex, because I never had that talk with my parents, and I'm lucky that I was like a pretty self-aware kid to know that like I didn't want to have a child at the age of 16, 15, you know. So I started birth control when I was 16, but the first time I had sex, I was 15. Let me just say, it doesn't matter if you're 25 and you haven't had sex yet, and it doesn't matter if you're 16 or 18 or 20, or it doesn't matter what age you lose your virginity. What is most important is that you are ready and comfortable. Like, I think it's debatable whether it's like with someone you love or not, but what is most important is that you are comfortable and your partner or whoever you're doing it with is comfortable with it as well too. Condoms are less than $1. You can buy it for $1. In fact, if you want to, you could probably go to your school nurse and be like, look, can I have a condom? And she probably will give you one. Obviously, it depends like what school you're in. Like, I don't know, maybe if you're in a Catholic school, that won't happen. I was so shy to buy condoms, I shoplifted them, but don't do that. Just buy them. Nobody's gonna judge you for buying them. They're gonna be like, okay, good, at least this kid is having safe sex. Birth control pills is not for everyone. There's different ways of having safe sex, such as like, you know, using a condom, like the rod, all these other different ways. The pull-out method does not work. It doesn't work, guys. Don't think that this pull-out method is gonna work, because it's not going to work. Okay, I wish that you guys don't have a relationship with your parents that you cannot talk about sex. I couldn't talk about sex or anything. Like, I was still that kid that like when we watched movies at the age of 16, if there was a sex scene on the television, I would be like, I'm looking away, mom and dad, like I'm looking away. So that was like kind of the relationship I had, and I'm sure in a lot of your schools you do have like sex education. If you do talk about it to your parents, like come to them in a mature way so that they know that you're mature enough to even be doing that. I always had this like excuse in my head in case my parents did find out that I was taking birth control, and it was I wanted to have clear skin, because birth control has a lot of downsides and a lot of benefits. For me, the benefits is that I got clear skin and I was able to regulate my period. Of course, when you're like younger, like, it's harder to like guess when it is time for your period. Now as an adult, like I can tell like when my period is. I know my body more, but when you're younger, like that's just like something new to you. So I was lucky enough when it was my first time. I was in a relationship with a guy for over 5 months, and we never, you know, we never did it like that. I was 15, he was 15, and we both like never had sex. And we went into it really slowly. Like, being in the relationship, we obviously learned to trust each other, to care and love each other. It became like a very like balanced type of relationship, and it started with small things such as like kissing, holding hands, and then it slowly grew to more intense things. I don't know how to say this because I'm so worried for my audience. It's not like we suddenly were like, bam, it's 5 months, like we're ready, let's do it. It was like we were already working our way towards doing that, such as like moving from first base to second to third and then to home base at the end. So I think I was personally more than ready, and he was also more than ready. Like, we wanted to do it so many times beforehand. There was no proper opportunity. So I think the best way is to do it with someone you're comfortable with. And I'm so lucky that like how I lost my virginity was with someone I was very comfortable with. We were in a relationship for like 5 months, and what is most important is that you're comfortable. It doesn't have to be a certain amount of months. You don't have to wait 10 months. You don't have to wait like 2 years before you're ready. It's when you are ready, like as a person. Like if you're like, okay, I'm ready. I know so many girls who were in relationships for 2 years and they were still not ready to have sex, and that's totally fine. It's all about when you're ready to do it, and as long as your partner and whoever you're doing it with is comfortable as well too. Like also check in with them. I know most of my audience are female, but some guys are also like pressured as like teenagers to like, oh, hurry up, like have sex, have sex, have sex. And that's why like also make sure that if you're having sex with the guy that he's also ready for it as well. Basically we were like moving from second to third base, and it was getting to the point where we were like, we gotta do this, like we gotta do this shit. But his parents were hella strict, so we could never have like a sleepover. It was always just like, oh, like in the changing room at school, and it like never went like past that. And then I remember we had this like party at my friend's house, and it was the first time he was ever allowed to have a sleepover. And so I was like, yes, this is the moment. And just note that like I was waiting for this moment. Like I was raging for this, right? Like ooh, I was like teased and teased and teased, and I was like ready for this. So that's why I feel really comfortable in my experience, because I was more than ready, and that's why I can look back and like not really cringe that much. Of course, like I still cringe, and I'll get to that. Pretty much we arrived at the party, and my friends at the party knew. All of my girls, they all knew this was the night for me. I was fucking waiting for this night, right? So they gifted us a bunch of these gifts. They had this sex dice that they gave me. I still have this dice to this day, and it's literally like a dice with like all different like positions. Like, not that we needed it, like this was like our first time. And then they gifted him like a Playboy magazine, but like on all of the naked girls' faces they like stuck my face on them, or I think they stuck his face on all of the Playboy guys. Like oh my god. And then they also like gift us like novelty condoms, like glow in the dark stuff, and like lube and stuff. So I pretty much like entered the party with all my friends being like, girl, it's gonna be your night. So I like, this is how ready I was. Like I was literally telling my girlfriends like, oh, I'm fucking about fucking time, like I've been waiting for this, like, ooh, it's about time, tonight's gonna be the night. Me and my like boyfriend at the time, we like go into the parents' room. We were already comfortable with like cuddling and spooning, touching each other, but we hadn't just stuck it in. So why is this so awkward to talk about? Because I was like 15 at the time. I go on top of him and we like pull out the condom. It was like a really bad one. Like, this is what I'm gonna say, like this novelty fucking condom that we got was just like absolutely, it had like no lube to it, so like it was kind of a little bit painful on my end. But because I had already experienced like using tampons and stuff, it wasn't that uncomfortable. This is another tip that I don't think I've heard a lot of people talked about, but as a girl, if you're just using pads and you're like ready to have sex, try using a tampon, because it's like, now you know what goes in there. You know, masturbate like as a girl, like before your first time, if you know your body, then it makes you more comfortable, because it's easier to be like, oh, like you're doing it wrong, or oh, that hurts, or can you like wiggle a little to the left or like to the right, or you know, like I've known so many girls who like don't know their body and haven't masturbated, so they don't know like how to tell a guy like what's wrong or what's right. So luckily, like I was very experienced in knowing my body, so he was lying down and I was like, and it hurt a little bit, but it was totally fine. I think it was because we warmed up. So that's what I want to say to you guys, like warm yourself up. Like don't just like expect things to like magically work. This is the first time that's happening, so it might be a little bit weird. To be honest, it didn't feel like pleasurable for me, but like the idea of what we were doing was fun. I was like, cool, like that's what we're doing, like this is something I was ready for, like having sex, etc. But like the actual feeling, like down there was like kind of uncomfortable. It just felt like I was getting a tampon and like sticking it in and like pulling it out and like sticking it in and pulling it out. And also with him, like he didn't know what to do because he was also a virgin, so it was kind of like it was kind of weird. It was kind of like just like sticking Lego pieces together, but like not really like getting it right. Like instead of being like this, it was kind of like that. Like we both enjoyed it. Of course, like when we left the room, everyone was like, oh my god, like you guys finally did it. Like we weren't pressured by our friends to do it, etc. So like it was kind of like very like celebratory for all of us, because everyone was like, wow, like Anna's been waiting fucking 5 months for this, because I was always quite horny. So like all my friends knew that like I was just waiting for this. And I finally like got what I wanted, even though it wasn't like pleasurable. Obviously you're not gonna like come the first time you have sex, so like don't pretend that you're like orgasming, because I wasn't like being like, oh my god, that feels so good. I was kind of like, oh, this is different. And I think he was like that as well too. And also like with finishing off, like obviously he had a condom on, but he finished off because I gave him oral, basically, because we both didn't know what we were doing. It was our first time, and also like our friends were like listening in through the door, so we felt already like we were kind of performing and felt like a little like self-conscious. Yeah, so that's the story of my first time. I don't really like to talk about stories without giving you guys some advice. I think my biggest advice here, and I'll make a whole video about masturbation because I think that's like such a taboo topic, but very much like needed, especially between us like ladies. Like I think guys can talk about like jerking off and all that stuff, but with us girls it's kind of awkward. But know your body. Like it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter what religion you are, like feel yourself, like get to know your fucking kuka. Like once you get to know yourself down there, then it's easier to let someone else in. Honestly, I feel sorry for the girls who do not like get to know their body and they're put into situations where they have to like have sex, or they feel pressured to have sex and they don't like know their body well enough to feel comfortable with what they're doing. Like I was lucky enough to be in a situation where I was very comfortable. Like some women, like some girls do not get the choice to choose when they get to lose their virginity. Some girls are aped ray. Some girls are taken advantage of before they're even able to choose to have that experience. Also, I've known a lot of girls who are like, oh, I don't care about my first time, it wasn't special or anything, it was just with some random guy. Like don't feel ashamed if it was. Like really, like do not feel ashamed if the first person you had sex with and lost your virginity to is some guy that you didn't even care about, you didn't even love, maybe some guy that you just met at the party. Don't feel ashamed about it. Obviously I wouldn't recommend like just go have sex with whoever just because of like, you know, STDs and all that stuff, but what is most important is if you're ready. So my friend, she was ready at the time, she was ready to have sex, so it didn't matter to her who it was with, she was like ready for it. And that's why I'm like, oh, like that's fine, like as long as you are ready for it, it doesn't have to be with someone that you've been in a relationship with for 6 months or for 2 years or for however long. Don't feel like a slut. Like don't let people whore shame you, slut shame you just because you decided to lose your virginity to some random person that you didn't really care about. Of course I wouldn't like recommend it and be like, oh, do it to whoever, as long as you felt ready and as long as like you weren't taken advantage of, you weren't like heavily under the influence where you could not consent. Like consent is so important. And like girls and guys watching this, like I'm talking to the girls as well too, make sure the person that you were having sex with is consenting. Consent is so important. Like, oh, maybe is a no. If they're like, oh, maybe later, that's a no. If they're like, I guess, that's a no. If they're like, sure, that's a no. If they're like, yes, I'm ready, fucking give it to me, like, oh, give me that dick, give me that fucking pussy, like, then they're ready, they're consenting. But if they're kind of like iffy, that's a no. And especially if they're under the influence. If you guys have any questions below that is sex related or masturbation related, like let me know in the comments and maybe I'll make a follow-up video about it, and you guys let me know if like videos like this are the ones you like. Obviously I talk more about like mental health and like vlogs and like fashion and like music and all that different stuff, But I do also want to help like my friends out there. Like, a lot of you guys are like still going through puberty, and I want to be that big sister. I want to be that person to help guide you through this, because my parents never talked to me about sex, and so it was always like an awkward topic. Like, I don't even think I've ever like told my dad that I've had a boyfriend or whatever. Like, I'm sure he knows, but I've never been like, oh, my boyfriend. Like, this is the quote of the day. Thank you for this quote. And yeah, I hope you guys have an awesome week. And if you guys are over 18, check out my OnlyFans. Link in the description. I don't do full nudity. I don't show my nipples. I don't show my kuka. But I do have a fun time talking with you guys. Yeah, definitely do check it out, but only if you're over 18. Love you guys all so much. Have a good week. Bye.